Good afternoon. Welcome to another NorCal Malibro. Today we're doing a little ramblings. This is the second time I've done this. I'm a good rules following nerd, so I'm keeping up with the social distancing, not going out, not going to the movies. There's no sports on TV. There's only so much Netflix and chill I can do at home, and I'm kind of bored. So I decided to just throw some rambling thoughts together, drink a beer. Um, Going to cover some ground that's might have been covered before, but I'm going to do this through the medium of video where maybe we can show it and see if this is useful. So I'm going to talk about Karis. Now, she's one of the three masters I've been using with some regularity, probably the third least used. Generally, I've been playing a lot of sand. Especially if you're following my battle reports, you'll know I'm playing a lot of Sandeep and Tony. Tony's my favorite. But Karis, when I want to do something different, it's a very different play style than both Sandeep and Tony, especially Tony. She's much more spread out, fast, pretty aggressive crew. I tend to be a bit of a counterpuncher, defensive style player. So it allows me to do things a little differently. Maybe throw a little monkey wrench in my regular players, and so on. So before I get started and I think today, kind of let me take a step back. What I want to focus on is not the master itself, but the first turn. What spins her engine up. Because to be honest, you can just listen to the excellent Third Floor Wars table talk with, I believe it was James Doxey. Excellent UK player. He's probably a better player than I am. I don't think I played him. In fact, I know I didn't play him the one time I went to the UK. But he's going to be able to give a better opinion of where Karis was. Now, I will say this was back in May of last year. This is actually before M3E dropped, so this was based off the closed beta. So things have changed. GG1 has changed things, but I think this is a great place to start. You get the basics there. Karis hasn't changed that much as far as crew selection, et cetera, but I'll go into some of the changes I see in GG1 for her at the end. But I'm not going to try to compete with Craig. He's just doing too good of a job as far as the master deep dives, and he's getting excellent guests on. So I would just, that's the place to start. Go listen to that if you got nothing, and if you haven't, and then come back and watch what I'm trying to do here. So these are the 5 basic models of a Karis crew. I cannot see. This will be my first 3 purchases. You obviously got the totem there. And any deployment is going to start like this. And the funny thing is, while I mentioned that Karis is a wide-ranging crew, will spread out, can move around, it starts in a pretty tight formation. At least these core models do. And there's a big reason for that. So what you see here is you got the going from left to right, you got the totem, you got Carlos, you got a fire gammon, and then a fire golem, and then in the back there you've got Karis. So you'll see some variation of this. Now, obviously, terrain in a deployment zone will mess with this, and you got to get creative. We're going to look at some. I'll set up a table with some terrain on it, at least a quarter of a table with some terrain on it, just to go over some impacts and what I like to do. But the important thing here, number one, is that Carlos is within 2 inches of every one of these models here. The farthest out is in this particular setup is the fire golem. There's no, you definitely want to make sure that all these models ping a burning. The reason for this is Carlos, which we'll go over his card at the end of this video, has when he activates, will throw out a burning 2 to everybody. And Carlos will be an early activation on turn 1. Maybe I have a soulstone miner sitting out there who will bury and mine a soulstone. Maybe there's um, some other models. And again, I'll talk about a little bit about crew composition at the end. I won't go that far into it. I think, like I said, Doxy does a pretty good job on the third floor wars. But you know, this is the core. Well, I'll talk about it later. So let's go on. So pretty basic setup. Uh, well, that's a good picture of my living room there. Um, it is raining really, really hard here today. Another reason why I'm bored to death, stuck in the house. I did take a walk, but it's a little different than we usually get here in Northern California. It's, you know, there'll be 5 minutes of sun and fools you, and you step out, and then there will be a thunder shower. We don't get thunder showers here typically. Usually you get just kind of a drizzle, but it's coming down pretty hard when it rains, and when it's not, it seems to be pretty sunny. So you'll see some weird lighting. It happens, I think, through the pictures here. Um, but I always love getting model eye views. Every time I take the shot of a model eye view in the battle reports, I'm pretty happy with it. All right, so here we see Carlos go first. He gets out a flame pyro marker there. Puts it out a little bit ahead, probably about 4 inches, 4 to 5 inches in front. Not 5 inches, definitely went a little closer than that, but you know, 3.5 to 4.5 inches in front of the fire gammon. As you can see, he pulls out a flaming on all the models, and he's very quick, move 6, so he's off probably heading to do a little scheming there. So next activation in the engine is the fire gammon. So his first AP, as you see here, he walks forward into the the pyro marker. It's our old M2E flame pillar markers, sadly. I really got to update my marker collection. I think I need to listen to Third Floor Wars, because they probably have an advertisement for a good company to get that from. I will do that over this next week since I got nothing else to do. Anyways, so first AP, walk forward, grab another flame, sit in the middle of the pyre marker. That's simple. So then second AP is to walk forward again, and here we see, even with a little bit of a cut to the edge here, he walks forward. He can do his once per turn. After this model resolves a walk action, it may place any pyre marker that it moved through during the action in base contact. So he basically took the pyre marker with him, got another flaming on him, giving him flaming 3. So he is cranked up, pretty good shape, and prepping for the next part of the engine. So then the fire golem goes. He does his free action, draw a flame, which allows him to target a model within 8 inches with burning, and place in contact. So now he's placed in front in the pyre marker where he wants to be, and then drawn the flame off of the gammon onto himself. This is effectively given him 4. I'm sorry, this is actually short. I think all my photos will be short when flaming. He'll be at flaming 5, or burning 5, I should say, not flaming, burning 5 at this point. And since he uses that as a defense, flaming body, which allows him to reduce his burning condition by up to 2 to reduce damage that he suffers by the same amount. He's already tanky. This is effectively armor 5, or not armor 5. That's not the way to put it. This is 5 damage that he can soak up at this point, unless you have irreducible. That's the only way to get around it. Armor piercing doesn't, precision doesn't, any of the things. Irreducible is the only way to get through this particular defense. There are other ways. You can dispel magic on him and pull the condition off. But as long as he's got burning up, and he is starting to get tanky and hulky and very, very difficult to take down. At this point, he can do a couple things, because he's still got 2 AP left. If there's a model forward he wants to start engaging, he can charge it. He can walk and charge. If he does walk, he can take the pyre marker with him and then charge through it. So again, just building that burning up. If there's nothing and the opponent's staying far back, he's got a shockwave, which is great. So you can do this twice. You can see here I placed the shockwave 8 inches away from him, and then it's a shockwave 2, and so all 3 of these models would be hit. You can see this is reaching well into the enemy deployment zone on the first turn, and it's a pretty brutal one. It's burning 2, damage 2, which is a great shockwave, to be blunt. It is a move 13, so most models are going to need what, a 7 or 8, for move 5 and 6 models, which is gonna eat up either their cards or the hands. I don't know if early in the game you want to take 2 damage and burning 2 unless you got easy access to healing and condition removal, or other ways to mitigate it, like what is it? Don't take damage from these type of facts, or things like that. I do believe bulletproof would work as well. It is a gun icon, but again, a lot of options here. Now you could see really with the lines here, he's straddling. He's halfway up the board with 2 AP. He's got lots of options for a big beater. He's a min damage 3 as well. So the biggest problem with that scenario is it's easy to counter. Kill the dang gammon beforehand, and then there's nothing for him to pop up. And so when I'm looking at a table with this crew and looking to deploy, I'm looking for things kind of in the middle that either block line of sight, provide cover, provide concealment. And there's a couple reasons for that. So I threw up a sample little setup here. You can see there's unfortunately some severe terrain in my deployment zone. Fortunately, because of the place effect, I don't care about it. Obviously, I could put Karis in there too, who can fly. So pretty good position here. Probably the only thing I might do, depending on where this was, is maybe scrunch it a little closer so the totem grabs another flame when the golem activates. Maybe he doesn't use it, but it is a resource. And as you can see, this is the backup plan in case the fire gammon goes down. So in this case, Carlos gets the pyro marker out there. I like having him get it out there. I know he needs a tome to get it off. I believe a 6 of tomes. If you don't have it in hand, Karis can do the same thing, but I like saving Karis's for getting them even farther forward. And the reason being is I think I get about 8 to 10 pyro markers down by the end of the game. Certainly with 2 of the models that drop them when they die. Karis, machine guns them out. So I would even spend a soulstone on the first turn to make sure that Carlos gets his out. I would rather save the one that Karis is going to put out, or possibly 2. She's got a mask. I think just needs a 5 of mask. Pretty easy to get off. But I think that first one from Carlos is just too important. So in this case, I move up the fire gammon, but I'm hiding. And so I'm in a pretty good position here. There are 2 things that can happen. If they're against a shooty crew, which is kind of what I'm always worried about, is he gets shot off. And then I'm in a tough position. But, I should be able to get cover here. So he's going to have to get in some weird line of sight angles. It's a pretty big piece, but I can get the cover that I need. So now he's defense 5, and we'll be on a negative flip. And worst comes to worse, that's 7, his 3 wounds plus the 3 burning. He also has flaming body. Ideally, I can keep at least 1 burning on him. But I think it's even more important just to keep him alive. So that's 7 wounds for a little 4-stone minion that needs to be chopped down while he's sitting in cover. So there's not a lot of shooting that can do it. You're either going to have to ignore the cover. Even then, that's probably I mean, how many shooters have min damage 3? He's not the, defense 4 sucks, going to 5 with cover. If there's concealment, so if I'd gone towards my little well there, which if you're shooting through it provides concealment, that would actually be a better spot now that I look at it. So I would have gotten concealment and cover. So on negatives, just makes it pretty tough to take him down. The other way to deal with him, obviously, is to get up there and charge him. But then that means there's a beater staring at both Karis and a min 3 beater. So you're sacrificing something to kill him. And it's got to be a pretty good hitter to be able to get through 7 wounds. And if he goes in through the left, he's going to have fire, which the golem can actually draw off flame off an enemy. It is a stat 6. And he's sitting in a pyre. If he goes to the right, he's going to have to go farther and deeper into the danger zone of 2 pretty fearsome beaters in my mind. So I think that sending in somebody, unless they're totally expendable, to kill the fire gammon at this point would be a suicide run, and shooting him off, I think at this point would be pretty tough as well. So again, I'd probably you want to place into the flame pillar. You can see I leave a little edging there, and he pulls and draws off he'd be actually at 5, burning 5 right now. Have some cover if there's some shooting. Here, just because it's so close to this, I'd probably throw out the shockwaves unless there's something that I can charge pretty easily off to the left. Not sure what this is, probably just a duplicate photo. So say like it all goes wrong, and the gammon gets popped somehow. Shooting, ranged attacks, take him down. Your backup plan is just to double it, so that's going to drop a pyre marker. So now you got 2 of them up there, and your backup plan is simply to walk the totem up. He'll grab another burning, so he'll be at burning 2, and then you can draw a flame and jump up there with the golem. So you've got the golem effectively at midfield. He's building his tanky up. And so I don't think there's a good way to stop it once you can get some terrain involved here. I'll probably do one of these for Sandeep, but I wanted to do a comparison of Sandeep versus or the metal golem. So I just grabbed a Sandeep crew. I assume you could do this with Mayfang. That's actually going to be the next master I'm going to focus on. Foundry can drop scrap markers, so same thing. So you're going to do this with scrap markers instead. Easy to get the demise when you focus, etc., etc. And so this is again another kind of tight. Sandeep does like to stay tight. There's the mantras that give a lot of benefits. He likes to stay tight through the whole game. Again, I'll do something similar for Sandeep in the future. But someone concentrates. There's ways to obey, etc., and so the metal golem drops a scrap. Then the metal gammon walks twice, uses the I think it's a foundry ability, whatever it is, walking foundry, to drop a second scrap marker. Now the advantage here is if the metal golem is killed, he drops a second scrap marker. So and the idea obviously is what you see next. A quick rail walk. Now the problem here, the disadvantage of the metal golem versus a fire golem, is there's only 1 AP left at this point. But if there's models close by, doing a walk to rail where you can, do a bunch of tests as well as get a swing and maybe get a vent steam up in the middle of his crew, are all good things. And again, you kill the metal gammon, there's going to be a second scrap marker there. There is a way to stop it. I should say there's a way to mitigate it, and that is simply to have a 40 millimeter marker stand on top of that scrap marker. Here in this case, I can't really see because of a bad shadow, but a blessed leapt forward and jumped right onto the scrap marker. There's no nowhere for the metal golem to place itself in contact with that scrap marker. And so, I'd be forced into, as a Sandy player, I'd be forced into having to overcome that, deal with it. Maybe I hit the golem, the gammon with an obey, which will allow me to drop another scrap marker. Actually, within 3 inches, it's probably better, and so on. But if I wasn't, that golem, who's sitting in some severe terrain, is in a kind of a little bit of a bad position. So I wanted to get into the differences between drop and crate. If you're contemplating a Karis crew, there are other crews, but specifically Karis, where you're dropping pyre and creating pyre markers all over the place, there is some very specific differences. So if you drop a pyre marker, and the typical acts of dropping is if a fire golem or gammon is killed, it drops a 50 millimeter hazardous burning 1 pyre marker into base contact. When they walk through it and use their Dancing with Flames, it is again dropped. It's placed, I should say. It's not dropped. And then things like there's some abilities that move them that don't matter so much. But so dropping allows you to drop it in base contact or even underneath models. So that fire gammon that is killed by, say, something in combat can use its demise ability to drop a pyre marker under whatever it killed it, if it was close enough, which would be important. That's just putting more burning when that model decides to do other things. Now, the crew also creates pyre markers, both Carlos's and Karis's abilities to create pyre markers. It's not drop. And the fundamental difference there is you cannot put it in contact with another model or impassable terrain. And so it makes it a little tougher for those two models to use them offensively. Again, there are ways to move the pyre markers around. I don't think I ever uses Karis's ability. It's almost always the totem. He's a great totem. He does a lot of damage for his cost. But yeah, make sure if you get, understand the differences between these two is kind of my bit of advice. All right, so this is my basic, always take Karis crew. This leaves me 20 soul stones. I generally like to have about 4 or 5 with Karis. She's a little delicate. So say 16 soul stones to buy whatever I need for the strats and schemes and for the the opponent. So pretty flexible. This has probably got the biggest pool of the 3 masters I'm playing, the biggest pool of decisions to make with the most soul stones. Now, you'll see the soul stone miner still in there. It's still a bit of crutch. And while it got nerfed, and I think very appropriately, I've even come around to the nerf to both movement and armor. At first, I thought it should have been one or the other, but at the end of the day, I typically get about 3 soul stones out of the miner, which makes him basically a 3 soul stone model. And I compare him to the spider, single spider, and he's much better. So why wouldn't I still take him? He's going to be a crutch. Now, I think right now, he won't always get the magical training. So if I've got another minion who I think is survivable, I'd probably put it on that other minion and then be a little bit more offensive minded with the Soulstone Miner. I think he's got, he doesn't allow resistance triggers, which is pretty nice. So can hunt down models that depend on resistance triggers for defense. He's only movement 4, but is still unimpeded, and we play with some, patches of severe terrain, so he can get through there with some ease. And at the end of the day, if you can try to score some of the positional stuff on turn 3 if you want. Um, it depends again on how aggressive you're seeing the other crew. So let's talk about this guy, Carlos Vasquez. I like this model a lot. Um, obviously in a Karis crew, he's you know he works very well, synergizes very well. In fact, I think synergizes much better than in a performer crew. That said, I easily can see him taking him in a sand deep crew where I emphasize the fire elementals versus the metal or the ice. I see him uh, in other crews with research mission in the pool nowadays where he can create his own marker, and then don't mind me. So he's got 2 of the 3 markers already taken care of. He is fast, a move 6, and then a 5-inch push. That's a 16-inch model, a movement model. It's got some survivability being a henchman, and defense 6. But with butterfly jump, even more survivable. So you're going to get the one shot on him. This is a guy that can get to the edges pretty quickly, and he's not a big hitter, so to speak. He'll spray out some flaming. Maybe that will take care of some of the smaller models that he might find out there. I just don't. I think if I'm swinging or shooting with this guy, I'm doing something wrong. This guy's an 8-point scheme runner with some other synergies, and one I don't have to worry about, which leads me to a kind of a thought I had. So another excellent podcast, Schemes and Stones. They do this tax time, and I don't think Carlos was on the tax time for Arcanist. I haven't. It's been a long time since I listened to it. It was published back in October of last year, and I would pose the question to Kyle and Brian on Schemes and Stones if any of their models or models they thought were worthwhile for taxing would change given Gaining Grounds 1. The strats, the new strats and the new schemes. Maybe I'll ask Kyle to see if he will do an update, and just go through his episodes and his lists and see if anything pops in and anything drops out. But again, I see myself taking Carlos more frequently than Cassandra, who I rate pretty highly, and I think was rated pretty highly by the Schemes and Stones fellas as far as something worth taking in Arcanist with attacks. So when would I take Karis? So looking at the new strats, let's talk about Public Enemy. I got to give this one a no. And here's why. A lot of enemy models are going to die to burning condition at the end of the turn. And in Public Enemies, a model must kill the enemy model to get the points. Now you can take Iggy, I get it, but that's putting your entire strategy on a single model that can be a bit fragile and has to be close in. And it's going to collect a lot of bounty points when things die, and so be a target. I don't see this one in Public Enemy. I think you're opening yourself up to, because if I was facing Karis and I had a model on 1 wound, I might just run him through a pyre marker on my own, just to kill it with with burning at the end of the turn, and then no one gets the bounty points. So I think this would be a bad pick. Getting into symbols, very mobile crew. I view Karis much more as a denial style crew than one that can go out and get it. But there's 2 things. A, you've got Carlos, who's fast and can get into the backfield very quickly. Um, it has, you know, don't mind me, so can get a protected symbols pretty easily. You have 20 scheme points that, or soulstone points that you can get things like Windgammons or Firestarter, who has flight and reckless, and I believe it moves 6 or 7, so pretty fast. I kind of like the move 7. Uh, I do like the Windgammon a little bit better, and so you can create offensive scheme remnants to get there while you've got you could throw out pyre markers that protect your symbols as well, so they're going to get injured and flaming as they run through them. I think that she's really good. Again, I see her probably being the midfielder or backfielder for you soccer / European football fans, and or safety for us American football players or fans. Just playing defense. She's got a throw in her base attack. She's got run and gun, so she can get there and start taking any of the fast scheme runners out. I like her a lot in the symbols. Get into recovery evidence. This one I went back and forth on, and she is a bit of a fragile crew, and that is um, a bit concerning. So you can expect this an evidence token to be on your, say, your fire golem, who you're going to jam into the middle of their crew because you want to. Now, it takes a lot to take them down, um, and but the smart players should have some uh, offensive condition removal. If you're facing a fellow Arcanist, a 4-point arcane effigy, 2 dispels, get it through, pull that off, and all of a sudden that fire golem is as fragile as the next thing. He'll go down in a heartbeat. Um, you know, the rest of the crew is running around, staying away. Certainly the fire game will end up with a recover evidence. So I think when he does his thing, he's bolting. For lack of he's just gonna be too easy to kill. Not a lot of willpower. It's pretty average. A lot of 5s, a little bit of 6s. So lures are going to bring them in, but you're going to spread out. You are going to be able to perhaps send Karis in, throw the enemy model, with the toss, or not the toss. I'm sorry, the pickup or whatever. What's her, But again, you're putting her in danger rather than keeping her back and shooting. Up we go, which I use shockingly a lot. I love throwing an enemy into a pyre marker, giving them burning and injured, and then shooting the crap out of them if I can. Also attack size, which gets around almost all resistance triggers. But with that said, I think it's a 2-inch range too. Yeah, it is. Recover evidence if the scheme pool's right is probably what I'm trying to say here. I think that the other schemes have to be something easily gettable for Karis's crew or easily deniable by Karis's crew before I go with recover evidence. So this is actually probably more of a maybe, but I'd be comfortable in this particular case. And finally, corrupted ley lines. Now, you'd think fast crew. Heck, Carlos. Maybe that's your lodestone carrier right there. The problem is the rest of the crew depends on flight and places, and the lodestone does not. If you have the lodestone, you can't do it. So you're either putting everything on Carlos, who's really good at it. And by the way, he can do it for every other crew in Arcanist. But he's only willpower 5. Lure can get him out of there. He doesn't have any defensive kit, which I think Corrupted Leyline is going to ask for either. High willpowers, laugh off is going to be a standard. Yeah, Deadly Pursuit's another good one. If you, um, what I wasn't really realizing yeah, no, I've been thinking about that last game, Battle Report. For those who saw it, I thought I played pretty poorly, um, made a whole bunch of mistakes, and so I think about these games when I make these mistakes and what I could have done better. And I got some other comments, but I'm not going to go there. I'm digressing. Let me have a drink of beer. Hold on. Just, anyways, I would probably avoid Corrupted Leylines. So given this, she's not a master I would solo into a tournament. If I was playing a 3-game tournament, I'd be too worried. She's got some bad matchups on the other end as well. If I was to solo, it would be Sandeep or Tony. So, I think there are other Arcanist Masters that can solo. Hoffman, Colette can, but I'm not playing them as much soon. Now that I don't have to worry about Akon, I'm going to really start expanding the Masters that I'm playing. Um, so I got Arcanist down as well as playing some of the Guild. So I can ramble on and on and on about schemes in this, but I want to talk about two for Karis. And the first is Hidden Martyr. I like Karis into Hidden Martyr. Um, she's got a way to deny it pretty easily, and that's burning. Simply burning. All those 5 to 8 stone models out there, you let die to burning. So you bring them down to 1 health with burning, or if they got even more burning on them. But you let burning finish off those models. And if they finish off those models, they can't score because you did not kill them. I think you can come up with. I think it's a little harder for her to score. That fire gammon, is an obvious choice. But you're exposing that fire gammon on the first turn. And if one of the Hidden Martyr models dies on the first turn, you can't score that first point. And so I would not put it on there. And if I was on the other side of Karis and I saw that fire gammon up there, on the first turn to do that engine, I might be willing to risk a beater to go in and finish him off just in case. But any Karis player that puts has that model as one of the Hidden Martyrs is making a bad mistake. And then let's talk about Research Mission. I think that this is one that is very easy to score the first point for Karis crew. I worry about scoring the second point. You need to have 3 models alive at the end of the game, and I could see Karis not having those. She might be alive. Carlos will likely be alive. Maybe the Soulstone Miner, and then Karis herself. But she could be badly out of position. She is all over the map there. She's got some of the speed that she can probably get into position. But you're banking on that. I see Karis die as well. She's not the most durable. And I could see not scoring that third one. Though the more I'm thinking about it, I think I'm still pretty comfortable with it. The danger here is, of course, making it easy for your opponent to score. And because you're going to probably have at least one pyre marker on your side of the table. You just are. Yeah, I don't see how you have to be pretty clever and work to avoiding it. I could see how. I'm looking at, again, always depends on the deployment. Corner would be very tough, but I'm looking at the map I just took all those photos on, and some of the models are still there. I could see walking that gammon to drag the other one over the side, and then just making sure both of them die. Both the gammon and the golem die on the opponent's table half, and that Karis doesn't provide the opportunity. Even if you drop one, the totem can push it. So you just got to be careful. It's going to take a lot of thought. So this is probably one that easy to get one. Going to take some effort to get 2. I think that's probably true in general. And you have to make sure you don't make it easy for your opponent to score off of your pyre markers. So I could have gone through a couple others like take prisoner. Don't ever do it because once you take that prisoner, they can kill themselves by getting burning again and finishing themselves off. So I think that's a bit of a trap scheme. So on. I could spend 2 more beers going over the schemes in Karis. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is my second ramblings. This may be a little bit more frequently than normal or as usual, I should say, until things return to normal here in the U.S. Certainly, if I miss a week of gaming with the fellas, I'll put one of these out instead of the battle report. The focus will always be the battle reports. That's what this channel does. I am disappointed in that I'm not going to be able to explain how I lost all 4 of my games at Acon to everybody, but it was the right decision. Hope to get a tournament. I'm going to look at the SoCal Malifaux scene and see if they do anything 2 days where I could drive down there. It's a big drive here in California for us, so I wouldn't do it for a 1-day tournament, but 2-day I'd go down to Southern California and then see if anything's up in the Pacific Northwest. See if Kyle can entice me out to the Midwest for a 2-day one. He might have to bribe me with some beers or something. But we'll see a couple of these. Stick with the battle reports. Hopefully I'll see the fellas this Thursday unless one of us is sick. In which case we'll all stay away from each other and practice proper social distancing. With that said, I find that a table is the perfect social distance part, right? And as long as you're not shaking hands and cutting each other's cards and touching each other's models, all should be good. All should be good. Anyways, stay healthy and keep flipping those cards.